And greetings. Welcome. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio and podcast. I am Steve Deace. I am here on location speaking to pastors this morning at a pro-life breakfast here in Missouri. I got to give a shout out to the team here at Learfield here in Missouri, giving us access to their studios and helping us get set up for today's show. They did not have to do that, more than a professional courtesy. So very thankful to them for that. Thankful as well to have Todd and Aaron, have you guys back there in Des Moines. I trust you guys are seeing me and hearing me okay. How are you guys doing?
Excellent. You look sharp.
Yeah, looks good.
Well, we had some pros help us this time in Learfield, so we want to make sure to give them credit for that. Also, I got to give you guys credit in the audience. Yesterday, my forthcoming children's book, Book 2, in my trilogy of children's books on America's Christian heritage, Why Easter? Jesus Died for Us So We Can Live Forever, was the #1 mover and shaker on all of Amazon yesterday. Every book on Amazon, regardless of format, it was #1 among movers and shakers, meaning we started from nothing. And the amount of traffic that you guys generated for that project on day one made it the #1 riser on all of Amazon.com. That's incredible. Cannot thank you guys enough for that. Releasing March the 5th. Pre-orders are available now at Amazon.com. Why Easter? Jesus died for us so we can live forever. Tells the full gospel story to your children and then points out there's no America without that gospel story, and how that gospel story inspired the country that they are blessed and fortunate to be born into, and therefore have a responsibility to hold on to. So if you want to pre-order your copy today, coming out on March the 5th, you can do that now. If you want an autographed copy, you can do that via premiercollectibles.com/whyeaster. premiercollectibles.com/whyeaster, though that's a limited run. There's only going to be 2,000 of those. So we wanted to make sure those of you on the show, you get first crack at them. premiercollectibles.com/whyeaster. All right, coming up on today's show, Theology Thursday will continue the Bible study that Dr. Jeremiah Johnston and I put together, Know Thy Enemy, for my film Nefarious. We'll have 3 non-political questions. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to talk to a former Border Patrol agent in a no-holds-barred conversation you do not want to miss. But before we get to all of that, let's begin, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by From Confetti to Crime Scene. Pandemonium in Kansas City's Union Station yesterday following a parade and rally for the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. At least 3 suspects are in custody after shots rang out and victims hit the ground. Between 20 to 25 were injured, with 1 dead. No word from police on what precipitated the shooting or motive or the identities of the shooters. There were upwards of 600 to 800 police officers in the crowd yesterday. Bad guys with bad intent carried out this senseless violence anyway. Didn't stop the predictable calls for gun control from the usual suspects. Reportedly, one of the suspects was subdued by a Chiefs fan as he was trying to run away. More on that later. Donald Trump's trial in New York over hush money payments he allegedly made to porn star Stormy Daniels was given the all-clear to start on March 25th. Trump is accused of falsifying business records related to a payment his then lawyer Michael Cohen gave porn star Stormy Daniels shortly before the 2016 election in exchange for her silence. And now there's the point on the montage where I wonder, did we get bamboozled? True the Vote is that organization behind the documentary film 2,000 Mules, which debuted in 2022. The central claim of the documentary is that 2,000 mules were paid to illegally collect ballots and deliver them to drop boxes in key swing states ahead of the 2020 presidential election. Well, now True the Vote has told a Georgia judge it doesn't have evidence to support its claims of illegal ballot stuffing during the 2020 general election and a runoff 2 months later. Texas-based True the Vote filed complaints with Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger in 2021, including one in which it said it had obtained a detailed account of coordinated efforts to collect and deposit ballots in drop boxes across metro Atlanta during the November 2020 election and a January 2021 runoff. A Fulton County Superior Court judge in Atlanta signed an order last year requiring True the Vote to provide evidence it had collected, including the names of people who were sources of information. Now, in their written response, attorneys for True the Vote said the group had no names or other documentary evidence to share. Oklahoma giveth and Oklahoma taketh away. A school administrator in suburban Oklahoma City has quit his job after he was exposed by libs of TikTok as moonlighting as a drag queen. Subsequently, he was pressured by Oklahoma State Superintendent of Public Instruction Ryan Walters to resign and has since acquiesced. Oklahoma giveth and now Oklahoma taketh away. This video from the group Abolitionists Rising is making the rounds. It shows a conversation between Oklahoma State Representative Marcus McIntyre, purportedly a pro-lifer, and T. Russell Hunter, director of Abolitionists Rising. The entire video is over 12 minutes long, but listen to this excerpt.
I'm just asking you if you would consider supporting a bill to abolish abortion in Oklahoma.
No, I will not support a bill for abolishing abortion in Oklahoma.
I think it's fine for you to be like, I am a pro-lifer, which means I will not abolish abortion in Oklahoma. I'm not trying to get you on that.
Okay.
I was just saying,
I don't know you, so I don't know what you're trying to do. Because
some pro-lifers might be like, no, I think abortion's murder. I don't want people doing it. I do think the role of
barbaric. I do, but
do you think the role of the government should be to stop barbaric things?
Well, that depends.
Learning Chinese today. Today's phrase is rape barbaric? It depends.
强奸是野蛮行为吗？这取决于
Where are the men? Well, we found a couple. Paul Contreras is one of the two men who tackled and subdued one of the suspects in yesterday's shooting at the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl rally. Contreras had driven from his home in Omaha for the parade and rally, and he told KETV Channel 7 in Omaha that when he saw the subject, he knew inaction was not a choice.
One guy was hollering, saying, stop him, or catch him, tackle him, whatever, and he's just bailing running. And out of nowhere, I heard that guy hollering, so I'm just like, okay, well, I'm right here, and I didn't even think about it. It just a reaction. I didn't hesitate. It was just do it. So I went to go tackle him, and another gentleman did the same thing. And as I'm tackling him, I see his weapon either fall out of his hand or out of his sleeve because he was wearing a long jacket or like a Carhartt. So when I seen that hit the ground, I'm like, oh, we got to take this guy down. And so, like I said, I did, and another good Samaritan did, and we held him down. And it seemed like forever, but it probably wasn't. It was like 30 seconds holding him down, and me and the other gentleman are hollering at ongoers, where's the cops? Get the cops over here, get the cops over here, we got them.
Well done, man. That's what happened while we were away.
Aaron's Montage brought to you by our friends over at Preborn, the outstanding pro-life ministry, and we partnered with them here on the Blaze last year to save about 58,000 babies from being murdered last year, and in the process saved about 58,000 moms as well from committing murder, and then having that soul wound, that stain on their souls that needs healing. We saved both, because that's really how we end this, is we got to save the moms and the babies together. We have to love them both. They do that at Preborn. And yes, I know with Bidenflation, everything's expensive, but it's still just $28 for Preborn to buy an ultrasound that over the years has saved lives about 80% of the time. Is there anything else that you are confident today you will spend $28 on that has 80% odds of accomplishing more good than that? That's why you want to partner with us again to save even more this year. Preborn.com/Steve is where you can donate. Tax deductible at preborn.com/Steve. All right, let's get to Aaron's montage. And let's start with Mr. Contreras there. Did you hear what he said? I just acted. Did you guys catch that?
Of course.
I just acted. Let me say it again. I just acted. I saw the guy had a weapon. I just acted. I saw there was danger. I just acted. I saw women and children were in danger. Innocents were imperiled. I just acted. I didn't blog. Didn't send an email. Didn't text. Didn't contemplate. Didn't pontificate. Didn't pause. I just acted. Now, for those of you that went to government school, what Mr. Contreras was demonstrating to you is what's called, and say it with me now, masculinity. Masculinity. And this is where Audis who can pee standing up and were made with more muscle mass than the other gender variation. They were, along with that added muscle mass, they were given like an instinct from a creator to act when they sense danger, to act to defend innocents and women and children when they sense danger, to try to stop danger, to try to punish danger, to hold danger and evil accountable. That's called, again, you may be new to this, and I don't blame you, but that's called masculinity. That's what that is. And I know we don't see a lot of that in this day and age. Instead, what we've seen a lot of in this day and age is when this kind of stuff goes on, people grab, including people with Audis that are also able to pee standing up, they grab one of these things and then just start filming it. That's not acting. That's not acting. Well, it's acting, but of a performance basis. All right. The key phrase there, I just acted. I just acted. Men, take the initiative. I just acted. I need to find out who's teaching my kids. I just acted. I need to see what curriculum my kids are being taught. I just acted. I need to love my wife as Christ loved the church. I just acted. I need to demonstrate a good work ethic to my kids and provide for them. I just acted. I need a mate, and she's interesting to me and single. I just acted. Act. Take initiative. Act. And in my opinion, that guy ought to be given like lifetime free season tickets at Arrowhead Stadium, and maybe the team ought to give him a Super Bowl ring. Thoughts?
It's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I don't. Another word for what you're saying is get uncomfortable. And listen, this is, hey, sports bro, love it. Love it. You went down there, celebrate your team, but like you when it was time to get real, we just got done talking about this. Put down the fantasy, get real. You didn't hesitate. And like I'm not asking you when I talk about this every day, most of us don't have to run into a burning building. This is Steve's point. Like and this guy did it without hesitation. Can you do the basics? Can you check all the boxes of what a male citizen is supposed to do before you start eating the gravy? And then no one has anything to say about anything. But to your point, Steve, I hope this isn't just understated. I hope this guy is given all the things you mentioned. And I hope everybody reflects on the fact that, look at none of this stuff, the extra stuff that we have is worth it if we will not do the thing. It's a perfect example yesterday. We have allowed so much decay and decadence. We won't be allowed to celebrate the things that we're celebrating. We won't be allowed. There are people after these shootings that are they can't wait to send up the next "we're going to take your guns" memo. Trust me, all the lamenting how terrible this is. I think it's terrible. Steve thinks it's terrible. Aaron with his own team certainly thinks it's terrible. The people on Twitter like Rich Eisen are saying, oh, what will we do? Oh, they just want to take your guns away. And they just want their flat earth where Aaron if he wants to off camera can talk about this more. But they want the flat earth. They want nothing but the fantasy 24/7. This interrupts that. What a stark reminder of this guy. It doesn't have to. Steve's line of it, that movie he loves, Joshua. He's telling you right there in his actions, not just words, actions. It doesn't have to be this way.
It would be so much better if we were trying to rein in the masculine God-given instinct to act, because it was happening too frequently that
Right.
it would be.
People are too impetuous.
We spent 10 minutes talking about this because it's so freaking rare.
Mm-hmm.
Act. It would be better to act and be wrong. In most instances, I would wager than to do nothing at all. So well done, Mr. Contreras.
I've taught my son Noah since he was a little dude. It is better if you're not sure what to do as a man. It is better to act on instinct and risk making a mistake than to fail to act. Because if you take initiative, there's time to make up for a mistake. If you fail to act, you lost the moment. Think about, and this is a tragedy, and there are at least 20 injured children, and someone's didn't go home from an event that there's no excuse to not go home from because of these three individuals. We'll talk about them in a moment. But what would it have been like for Mr. Contreras if he would watch that guy run by, knowing he could have acted, and then didn't, and then maybe more people get injured, maybe there's more than one body bag coming out of that event? What would his ability to have enjoyed his favorite team and celebrate with his favorite team and root for them forever sullied, forever marred? I challenge everybody who's an Audi in this audience and able-bodied and can be standing up. Don't let the sun go down any day, without acting on something that would benefit others, would serve others. Act. There's at least one place every day where you can do that. Act. And man, even in an audience this size, I can't even imagine like a Bongino or Shapiro-sized, Megyn Kelly-sized audience. Even in an audience of this size, the difference in this culture, if all of the men within the sound of my hearing right now, just on a daily basis, committed themselves to, I'm going to act. I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to act. I'm going to ask that girl out. I'm going to ask her to marry me. I'm going to go pick my kid up at school, find out what they were learning. I'm going to go for that job promotion. I'm going to play catch with my kid, teach my kid to ride a bike. Something every day.
Smash some idols.
Yep. Every day I'm going to act on something every single day. Every day. Now, the other side of this, how is it possible we don't know anything about these three individuals and their motivations yet? How is this possible?
Well, that's the easiest answer of all.
We don't want to.
That's the only possible answer. Doesn't fit an agenda. Doesn't fit the current zeitgeist, doesn't line up with whatever that may be. I don't know in which way they don't conform to the narrative, but it's pretty clear that if they did, we would know, right? I mean, if they went down there and said, this is MAGA country, bitch, and opened fire, we'd know, right? We'd have known 10 minutes later, right? So pretty clear there's reasons why they have still been able to not ascertain a motivation for this. Weird. All right, I want to discuss something that was in your montage, Aaron, and it's kind of personal to me. And I'm glad you put it in the montage. This is something, I stuck my neck out. Most of the time, Aaron used to book the show. Todd does it now. 80%, if not more, of the people they book, I give them total freedom. I trust them to know what you guys want to hear, who I want to talk to. And whoever was in charge of booking the show, and in this era, it's Todd right now, has a lot of unilateral freedom. Every now and then, I will make a suggestion or even make a request and say, hey, let's get this person. And this was one of them. I watched 2,000 Mules. I found it very compelling. I wanted to get the group on, True the Vote, behind it. We had them on. And I feel as if I'm going to bring somebody on this show, I've had one rule over the years is I will be professional and respectful no matter what you say on the show, provided as a guest, and you'll get your time, provided you don't lie to me or my audience. Doesn't mean you can't. You can believe things I think are lies, but I mean your intent is to deceive. You're running a grift, you're running a scam, you're trolling us, You're patronizing us. You're a deceiver. Some, category there. Short of that, people are typically treated very respectfully on the show. You may get questions you're not comfortable with, but you're treated pretty respectfully. And so I brought this group on at my request, had them booked via Todd. I gave them a platform here, and I gave them access to you. This is different than me personally, as someone who worked closely with Jason Miller on the Cruz campaign, and to see him testify to the January 6th commission in a mask that, well, we knew all along that Donald Trump lost, and we even told him that. That bothered me just because I know this cat. But now this is different. I didn't give Jason Miller a platform. I gave these people one, though. And to see them go into court in Georgia, of all places. I mean, the two places where most of the complaints about the 2020 election are sequestered is Pennsylvania and Georgia. There's others, Arizona, Nevada, but most of the actions have taken place in Pennsylvania and Georgia that we talk about. And to see them go into a court of law and say, we have no evidence to support our claims. Folks, why did people go to that rally on January 6th? Because they were concerned that their votes weren't being counted properly. And the election process lost integrity. That's why they went there. And then while they were there, within a small minority of the tens of thousands there, a riot breaks out. There are people in prison cells. People went to prison because they went to a rally that was about, they thought, stopping the steal. Now, let me say again, before I ever heard of a Lynn Wood, before I thought Release the Kraken was only a reference to Clash of the Titans, I sat here on election night on the Blaze, very concerned with what I was seeing from Antrim County, Michigan to Arizona. I remain very concerned, and no one's alleviated my concerns about the chain of custody of these various mail-in ballots, their seemingly unique uniformity. They were like, we had less of a rejection rate of mail-in ballots in the highest mail-in ballot turnout election in American history than we do an average election. And anybody who's done any form of ergonomics, any form of productivity studies knows you don't get more efficient with something the first time. You have to mass reproduce it. That just is not how human nature works. Yet we're being told that's how it worked in 2020. None of those concerns have been addressed, in my view. But here's what we have seen. We've seen Mike Lindell essentially go bankrupt for producing no results. And I know you guys are going to email me conferences and everything else. He's produced nothing in any court whatsoever, on any forum whatsoever. I like Mike. I have nothing personal against Mike. It breaks my heart what's happened to him. I also broke my heart to see him become so crazy for Donald Trump that he accused Ron DeSantis of stealing the election in Florida. That was kind of my tap out. But I still sleep on a My Pillow every night at home. But he's going bankrupt. People went to prison and are still there. Jason Miller tells under oath the January 6th Commission, current senior advisor to candidate Donald Trump, that they all knew Trump lost and told him that. And now True the Vote says we have no evidence. Todd, I want you to contact them and try to get them back on the show.
Okay.
My guess is they won't do it, but I want answers to this. I put them on the show. I gave them a platform. I bought into it and by extension sold it to this audience. We need some answers to this. And we've said here for the last 4 years, and every time there's another loss, like the special election in New York 3 the other night, a bunch of you text me or email me, tweet me, well, it's their ballot harvesting scheme. What's been done? What has the Trump operation done for the last 4 years of preparation to counter that? I'll answer it for you. Nothing. Nothing. What has happened is True the Vote told a Georgia court it has no evidence. Jason Smith told the January 6th Commission, also under oath, they knew he lost and told him that. Mike Lindell has nearly gone bankrupt, producing nothing. Nothing. I'm just. People are in prison for this. Prison. People's lives are over for this. People have had their lives destroyed for this. People whose lives may never recover from this. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Gentlemen, your thoughts.
Well, this is all the more upsetting based on what you just said about the Chiefs game. Well, if we are fed lies, you've talked about this for a while. We used to at least know what the news was, and then we argued about the right way to handle it. Now we don't even know what's true. And if there's one excuse that people can have for maybe not acting, it's like, I don't know what's real anymore. So that's something else. As it applies to I never saw 2,000 Mules, but I watched all the promo stuff. Is my memory, didn't they actually show what was purported to be the proof, actual video of late night drops with timestamps?
Yes. Yes, but what they're telling the Georgia judge is they also have no chain of custody to prove that those people were acting illegally. They can't prove who they were. They have no source of their claims. They're just saying, hey, we have video of this and it looks suspicious, so let's do a movie claiming it was a crime. And then when they were said, hey, where's the evidence that it was a crime and didn't just look weird, they had no evidence. That makes sense? They have no evidence.
Okay.
Here's what we can't do, Aaron. We can't gaslight our own people, okay? This is the thing about this era that bothers me greatly. You want to tell me, hey, Trump's lying to the media, Trump's lying to them, and they lie to us, so I don't care. Have we ever done a single damn show virtue signaling about that in all the years you guys have worked here in the Trump era? No. I don't give a rip how many times Donald Trump lies to some hacktastic, hack at CNN. I don't care. Okay? You cannot do this to us, though. We cannot gaslight our own people, Aaron. We can't do that.
In a battle between chaos and chaos, who comes out on top? Depends on where that chaos, the source of that chaos is coming from. Well, there's actually only one source. In a battle between chaos versus chaos, the devil always wins. This is what I have been continuing to harp on about the rise of the godless right. There is apparently less and less of an appetite for, as Todd was talking about, finding out what is truly real. Instead, we just stick to the narrative that we prefer. Apparently. That is chaos. It is fundamentally unmoored from anything good, true, and beautiful, and immovable truths of eternity. This is what the outcome of that is. The new right, the alternative right, whatever you want to call it, that says we can beat back the forces of DEI and woke and the demonic groomers, but we're going to do it through human philosophy, vain teaching. That's not going to work. And this is just an outcrop of that. At the end of the day, I'm not really sure how you turn that around other than revival. I don't think there is another way. And it's becoming increasingly apparent that our side believes that despite the lies, despite the unsurety about what's actually going on in the world, our chaos can beat their chaos.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I can promise you there's no winners in a fight between aristocrats and Robosphere. No winners. Only losers in that fight. Every time we play it out. Every time. More in a moment. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. I am in Missouri. Spoke at a pastor's breakfast here this morning. Todd and Aaron are back in our nice, posh Blaze uniformed studios there in West Des Moines. And if you are looking to get out and about, you need to relocate, you need to move. I know it's not the greatest market for it, which makes it even more important that you have a real estate agent you can trust, and we can help guide you to one of those. And the name of the website kind of says it all, realestateagentsitrust.com. That's realestateagentsitrust.com. This was a company started by Glenn Beck and some of his associates because they ran into real estate agents they found out the hard way they couldn't trust. So they thought, hey, why don't we put together our own referral service? Turns out there's a lot of great ones right here in this audience. Chances are you'll get hooked up with an agent who is a Blaze follower just like you. So, you've got a common value system. We're talking about people with proven track records of success, top sellers in their markets. So if you just need to move to a different part of town or to a totally new town, realestateagentsitrust.com is where you want to go. It's even more important now than ever before, given the difficulty of the housing market that we currently have, worse since 2008. So make sure you can navigate it with an agent you can trust at realestateagentsitrust.com. He is a retired Border Patrol agent. Chris Harris is his name. He joins us today here on The Blaze. Chris, thank you for your service first and foremost, brother. It's a pleasure to have you with us. How are you?
I'm doing well, Steve. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for those kind words.
You bet, and it's earned. Give us kind of your rundown, track record, your experience, how long you served, and where on the border, Chris.
Before I started in the Border Patrol, I was a police officer in New York. Then I became a Border Patrol agent, a federal agent with the Border Patrol. I spent a total of 36 years in law enforcement, over 21 on the southwest border with the U.S. Border Patrol, mostly San Diego sector. That was where I was assigned, Imperial Beach Border Patrol Station. But I also worked in Campo, California, El Centro, California, Ajo, Douglas, Ajo, Arizona, Douglas, Arizona. I was also a labor official, union official for National Border Patrol Council, a local 1613. Legislative and political affairs was my main thing that I did.
Let's start with your experience of where things were when you were active on the border and where things are now. How much truth are the American people being told right now, Chris?
This is probably the most opaque administration I've ever seen. I wanted to be supportive. I'm a supporter of the office of the president. I've gone from thinking that this was just ignorance and naivete to that this is being done with malice aforethought. The border is the worst it's ever been, ever. I worked under several administrations. I don't like President Trump. I'm going to say that right now. I don't like him. I don't think I'd like him to date my daughter, but I support what he did. I judge him by what he did. And under him, when he listened to the National Border Patrol Council, and he told us, I'm going to consider you guys the subject matter experts, not some La Raza attorney, not some Harvard professor, you guys. So when I want to know how to secure the border, I'm going to come to you. And he listened to us, and he gave us what we needed. So under Trump, the last 2 years of his presidency, the border was probably the most secure it's ever been. And that's through several different policies and things that he did. And then day one, President Biden undid them. And this president and this administration says, oh, we need new laws to fix this. No, just undo what you did, because we know it works. It's not one of these things like, well, we're not sure it works. We know it works to secure the border, and we can talk about that a little later. But Trump gave us that. Biden, for whatever reason, undid it. And that's why you have total chaos on the border now. Our manpower is down several thousand below its statutory minimum. The morale is at the rock bottom. People are just resigning. They're not even waiting to retire, or they're retiring as soon as they can. So yeah, the border is chaotic. The numbers are incredible. They're staggering. And there's some scary stuff going on that I don't think the legacy media is talking about at all.
You just addressed this, but I want to make sure to hammer this point home before we move on, Chris. What is the benign, innocent explanation for what is being permitted by this administration on our southern border? What is it?
I don't think there is one anymore. Again, I hate to say this, and I've said many a time that the border and security issues should be not bipartisan, should be nonpartisan. And actually, several years ago, it was. I could talk to Democratic senators, and they would say, Chris, we know we have to secure the border. We know we have to deport criminal aliens. And that's gone to a large extent now. And I differentiate between the left and liberals. And I see that it looks like the progressive left has pretty much taken over the border agenda. And so I now think that, again, and I'm going to use the words malice aforethought, I truly believe that there are people that want to knock this country down to a second world power, to a second-rate nation. Maybe not third world, but second world. There's an agenda. I truly think there's a lot of people have it. There might be a confluence of different agendas, but the border now is basically unsecured.
I think a great example of what you're addressing was last year when RFK Jr. went down to the border. I mean, he went down there thinking he, as a classical liberal, I'm going to come up with some kind of compromised approach, and the extremes of both sides are way overreacting to this. And he goes down there and he can't believe that he's talking to people from the Sudan, from China, from the Middle East. And he's like, wait a minute, I was sold a narrative that everybody coming over the border here just wants to pick grapes at the Che Guevara Ranch. All right. They're just trying to escape Honduras. Good Catholic people trying to get away from, bankrupt Latin American countries. And he's meeting a bunch of people that have no business just moseying along the Rio Grande. And now he's out there talking about shutting the border down and building walls. OK, that's kind of an example of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and I wish more people would be like that, whatever their political stances are on things. Right now, the Customs and Border Protection will tell you that we're seeing around people from about 170 different nations around the world are coming here, either just jumping the fence or claiming asylum. And asylum is a great system. Nobody wants to see it go away. It is the last beacon of hope for some people. It was basically made, though, created by Congress to address genocide against people. I'll use an example. I dated a girl after my first wife unfortunately passed away. She was from Cambodia. They had to escape Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge, the killing fields. That was real asylum, and it took them 2 years to get here. They lived in refugee camps in Thailand and in the Philippines. That's real asylum. So you're having people coming from 170 countries around the world claiming asylum. And we know most of these claims are bogus. The cartels, the smuggling organizations give them a script depending on what part of the world they're from. And I'll give you an example of that, Steve. So this is firsthand knowledge because I arrested the guy. He was a Chinese national from Fujian province. And he claimed that he was coming here for asylum because he was a Christian. Now, we do know in China, they do treat their Christians horribly. But through an interview, an interpreter, when I was interviewing him, I asked him, well, tell me about Jesus Christ. Tell me about Christianity. And I'm a Christian. I'm not a good one. I need to work on it. But I know the central tenets of my faith. So I said, tell me about Jesus Christ. And he kind of looked at me and said, he was a friend of Buddha's. Well, they lived about 1,000 years apart. JC and Buddha were not cracking beers together. So the guy's lying. And we see this over and over again. Under Trump, we did the Remain in Mexico program, basically the migrant protection protocols, where you waited in Mexico. You're safe. You said that you had to come from Nepal because it was unsafe. You're in Mexico. You're safe, relatively, compared to what you're saying you're escaping. And you waited your turn for asylum hearing. And when he instituted that program, the numbers dropped by like 80, 90%. And so we knew what they were doing. We knew how they were scamming us. But right now, there's people from over 170 nations that are claiming asylum. I saw people the other day at the border from Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a place where Americans, Canadians expat themselves to because it's so safe, it's friendly. And so when you're coming from Costa Rica, or you're claiming you're from Costa Rica, what's really going on? And so we're seeing that over and over again. And that is one of the biggest issues on the border, is people just step one foot on the U.S., they claim asylum, they're released pending some far in the future nebulous court date that they won't show up for. The GAO did a study several years ago that 80% to 90% won't show up. Now, the left will tell you 90% of asylum seekers at their hearings get asylum. Yeah, because those people went to the asylum hearing knowing that they have a real case. So yeah, out of the 10% that do show up, 90% will get, but 90% won't show up at all. And so they're just wandering around this country. We don't really know who they are because we fingerprint them and take their photos. That doesn't tell us anything. If we're not hooked up to their system in their country, which we're not, it doesn't tell us anything. It comes back non-derogatory. So I can give an example where we had a guy from El Salvador, and we interviewed him in Spanish, and everything came back negative, no derogatory information coming back. They're going to walk him out the door with an NTA, notice to appear. And on the way out, for whatever reason, he said, oh, I thought those 5 murders were going to cause me some grief. whoa, let's come back inside and talk some more. They had to go through the El Salvadorian consulate and find out he had 5 homicides. And we're going to let him walk out the door. So the system isn't really vetting people as the left would have you believe. Excuse me.
I've pointed out to our audience last year, Chris, since 9/11, we have imported about 2.5 million people from countries that are dominated by radical Islamist ideology. And if you compared that population, it would be like the 38th most populous state in the union. Those amount of people. And I pointed out to our audience, let's assume we vetted all those people. We didn't, but let's assume we did. And then let's assume that we have a 99% hit rate. We wouldn't, because that's impossible, but let's assume we did. All right. That 1% would be 26,000 people. It only took 20 people to pull off a 9/11. But 26,000, that's 26,000 potential sleeper agents just strewn throughout the fruited plain that could be activated at any point in time. And that's with a process that we were legitimizing through legal immigration. What are we letting through right now via the cartels, via the open border we have on our southern border right now? What's coming across?
So, I mean, I saw a group a while ago, and this should scare people. There was 30 of them, and they're not trying to get away from us. They just gave up to the 2 agents that were in that area, and they had them sitting on the ground waiting for transport. They were from Mali, Malawi, Senegal, the Congo. They were from Guatemala, from El Salvador, from Brazil, from Venezuela, from Cuba. And there were 3 interesting ones. And they were well-dressed. It was 2 women and a man. The man was what we call military age. He had a crew cut, was pretty buff. They were from Russia. We're almost in a shooting war with Russia. Does anybody know the name Spetsnaz? I mean, and the former KGB, I forget the name of it now, RSV or whatever, but these are people we're going to release into our country. And the Chinese nationals that we're releasing, we know for a fact that Hezbollah and Hamas have training camps in Mexico. We've had a gentleman's agreement with them for years that they don't screw with us, we don't screw with them. But we know they have training camps down. Several years ago in California, in Southern California, a transformer substation was shot at, I believe, 4 times. Key components were hit. Now, what they put out to the press, and the press gleefully ran with, was that it was probably some drunk redneck Yahoo shooting things up. But we know in intel, intelligence community in our agency, that this was done deliberately. There were 4 crucial points that were shot, that the person was there for a while. And we believe truly that it was a warning notice to the U.S. government, because it shut down the power grid in Southern California for like over a day. That it was a warning notice, and not sure what was going on internationally at the time. But it was a shot across the bow. And so you think about the thousands of people that could be fifth columnists here that could be activated. We know, and the intelligence community knows in China that these people are here, some of them specifically, if we ever go to war with China over Taiwan, they're going to start taking down our infrastructure. This should terrify people. When the first caravan started coming up in 2018, our intel people did a fantastic job, and they found out that it was funded and directed by a couple of different groups, George Soros groups for one, but also by Venezuelan intelligence, which by extension means Cuban intelligence, which means Russian intelligence. There are nation states out there and actors out there that want to see our country done harm to. They want to see our capabilities degraded. They have a lot of reasons to. They don't like us. Russia doesn't. China doesn't. North Korea doesn't. Iran doesn't. These nation states will do things like this, including fentanyl and opioids and stuff. Anything that degrades the fabric of our society is a win for them. Plus, they make money with the cartels. So these people, I think, truly want bad things to happen to this country.
All right, Chris, before I let you go, let's say Joe Biden still remembers how to make a phone call. And he calls you up, Chris, and he says, Chris, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Everything you tell me we need to do at the border in the next 30 seconds, I promise you will do, but you've only got 30 seconds. What do you tell him, Chris?
So that's easy enough. So the first thing is we need to get back to the migrant protection protocols with Mexico. Use the carrot and stick approach that Trump used and get them to start accepting, to hold on to these asylum seekers. Plus, they'll let a lot less into their country. So we need the migrant protection protocols back. We do need more infrastructure. You need infrastructure on the border. That's the fencing and roadways that go with it. We need more infrastructure. Finish what you started. We need more boots on the ground. We definitely do. We're 3,000 or so or more below our statutory minimum. These guys got to feel like they're not part of the smuggling organizations, Mr. President. These guys actually feel like they're part of the smuggling organization now. So you got to stop that, build up the morale, build up the numbers, better technology. We need to let ICE start doing its job again. So you do those things, and we stop funding the UN, which is funding a lot of this migration. You do those things, and you can go back to controlling the border and keeping this country, and more importantly, the people therein, much more safe.
Chris, again, thank you for your service, brother, and appreciate your testimony here on the show today. Very valuable. Thanks for your time. God bless.
Thank you, my friend. Take care.
You bet. Todd and Aaron, your thoughts on that conversation?
The truth behind all this, that testimony reminds me of all the testimony you and Daniel collected for Rise of the Fourth Reich. I mean, nothing. It's an equally great crime. And nothing short of gallows should be put up for those who have simply allowed. Again, this is not your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Flat out multinational criminals from across the world who hate us. Somebody needs to pay.
Yeah, I go back to that illegal. I think he was from Azerbaijan. He was caught on video a few weeks ago saying, you're stupid, you don't know who I am, but you will know who I am. He had been in prison, I believe, for arms smuggling and dealing. And these are the type of people who most of the time, oh, yeah, come right in. I just keep thinking back to your prediction at the beginning of the year, Steve.
The Black Swan event?
About a Black Swan event.
Yeah.
We're bowling for Black Swan right now. That's what we're doing. That's just the reality. It has to stop. It is absolutely... what did our colleague Rob Eno, he dropped this term at one point. I can't remember what the topic was. It's not insane, it's unsane. It's a lack of sanity. It's the opposite of sanity.
We have breaking news, by the way. We do know more about the Kansas City Chiefs celebration shooters. We'll tell you about that when we return, and have Theology Thursday as well. Stay tuned. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on BlazeTV radio and podcast. Steve Deace here. I'm in Missouri. Speaking earlier today at a breakfast for pastors, speaking at another pro-life event here tonight. Todd and Aaron are back there in Des Moines. I'll be here tomorrow, too, because the event tonight won't end in time for me to drive back tonight. So I'll head back after tomorrow's show when we do, at least I do my portion here remotely. Again, want to thank everybody at Learfield for making this happen for us today and tomorrow. They did a great job setting up, and we're more than accommodating. Appreciate them greatly. Appreciate all of you, too. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com, DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. Follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can also, if you're a podcast listener and wouldn't mind, leave us a 5-star review, hit subscribe, or if you're on iTunes, follow. That way, every time we do a new episode, it'll show up in your feed every single time. And thanks to all of you that have done that for the program as well. Want to thank our friends over at Trust and Will. Amy and I figured, after about 10 years, we should maybe update our estate plan situation. And, making an estate plan can mean gaining security of your assets and peace of mind for you and your loved ones with Trust and Will. That's what we used. You can manage and create a custom estate plan starting as low as $159. Just go to trustandwill.com/Deace. Trustandwill.com/Deace. You'll get 10% off plus free document shipping They did a phenomenal job for us, and it wasn't cookie cutter. They allowed us to customize it to our current situation as well. So get started today, 10% off plus free shipping of your estate planning documents by visiting trustandwill.com/Deace. That's trustandwill.com/Deace. All right, gentlemen, I mentioned there's some breaking news. The Kansas City Police Department just held a press conference while we were talking to the retired border agent in the last segment. What they're saying about the shooters now, 2 of them are juveniles. They're still not saying there's a motive, but it certainly is looking more and more like we're talking about some form of thug or gang violence here, some kind of beef or dispute, and it kind of ran amok. That appears to be what was the motivation or the cause of the shooting tragedy at the Chiefs Super Bowl celebration yesterday. Thoughts?
I understand that gangs are not the brightest bulbs in the batch. I can't imagine how even amongst gang members, if this is what we're maybe talking about here, they thought that that was a great venue to hash out their differences. Okay. That's my initial reaction.
Todd, you buying it?
Well, if the video that I'd seen previously of it's certainly tenable, and if what's passed as pro-lob in New York, where you can beat police officers and be released again, and one of them was just arrested again, that. We're going to have no idea what level of justice is meted out for them. Or if we do, it's going to have nothing to do with actual justice.
All right, let's get to Theology Thursday. We are doing the Bible study that Dr. Jeremiah Johnston and I put together, inspired by our film Nefarious. It's called Know Thy Enemy, a Nefarious Bible Study. It's based on spiritual warfare and what that looks like. And we're at session 5 now. Know how to fight evil. And we've done these every week, assuming you've watched the video. And if you bought the book, you have the code. If you go to Amazon and buy Know Thy Enemy, you get the code to see the videos. We don't have time to play them during the show because that would be much of the segment here and not leave us a lot of time for discussion. So we're assuming you've seen the 15-minute video every week. And that's where we pick up the conversation from there. Todd and Aaron, you lead us off with what in the video stood out to you that you think we should discuss further.
The providential timing that we talk about on what we end up talking about on the show without having a clear understanding of what events are going to take place. When I'm pretty sure you didn't look when you timed this, when this particular part 5 was going to come out in relation to Ash Wednesday. Because, man, Ash Wednesday yesterday. And the part of the movie clip in the video when Nefarious just flat out says, and you guys talk about it further, just admits the cross was our biggest mistake. Because yesterday at Ash Wednesday service, Father PJ said what is noticeable if you go, Ash Wednesday services. Again, within Catholic teaching, it's not an actual holy day of obligation, but it's always full, in my experience, no matter where I've been. And it was full again yesterday. It was like Christmas or Easter. And he said, that's what's amazing about our faith. I can't point over to the pretty lights and the Christmas tree and the baby Jesus in the manger and anything like that. You're coming here. And this is, I'll do a rough paraphrase of what I said, but he actually used the term hell. He says, you're coming here and we're saying, and the whole point of this thing, you're a bad person and you deserve hell. And you come every year like this. That embodies what Nefarious was saying about why the cross was our biggest mistake, because God took evil and used it for good. There are people, there's just clearly people that when Ash Wednesday rolls around every year, whatever Christianity is alive in them, the cross fills it. And to your point, Steve, about what you've talked about very, very recently, and just as recently as yesterday, It is what we keep pulling our punches. Just let the lion out of its cage. Don't be, you and Pastor Jeremiah, stop being nicer than God. When you give them the real thing, Ash Wednesday, people want it. They want to understand their brokenness because they want the answer for how to escape it. And there at the end, when of the movie clip, where he tells James, Nefarious tells James, it's not that Jesus believed that the devil didn't have the power to give all the riches of the world. It's that he didn't accept the offer. The problem here, it's been reversed, which is why we are so broken and so lost. We always accept the offer, but we don't know who has the power to give it. We think we've done all this ourselves. Look at this grand Rube Goldberg machine we've constructed. Look at all our comfort and riches. James says as much in the clip we have already discussed. Look how progressive we are. But if we don't understand how the devil works us over, we don't know that he has us right where he wants us. Book of Acts talks about in the first 4 chapters the opposite. They willingly gave all their stuff to others. The difference between the modern day church and its total lack of self-awareness of the dark one and the early church about when it was filled with the Holy Spirit, what it's supposed to look like. Night and day.
You know, that's a good word, Aaron.
Through the actual study, there's a large emphasis on the armor of God. And a question is asked, what piece of this armor sticks out to you? And there is one that I'll talk about in passing, but always sticks out to me, and we've talked about this multiple times. Most people on this program have probably heard of this as well. Talking about Paul says to put on the armor of God. It would be beneficial to probably read that. As I find it here, Ephesians, no, it's not Ephesians, sorry. We find it here. Putting on the full armor of God. Sorry, this is great television here. Ephesians 6:14 through 17. Stand therefore with truth like a belt around your waist, righteousness like armor on your chest, and feet sandaled with readiness for the gospel of peace. In every situation, take up the shield of faith, which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. We've talked about what's not listed there. What always stands out to me is what's not listed there. There's no armor protecting your back. Mm-hmm. Also, there's no put on the cloak of invisibility so that you can avoid trials. Take with you the orb of teleportation so that you can just hit the eject button when things get tough. No. Do any of these pieces of armor save you from battle? No. Do they save you from getting hit? No. But they do protect you. And so the one that stands out to me the most is the helmet of salvation, or referred to elsewhere, the helmet of the hope of salvation. Because at the end of the day, no matter what we see in our world, going on in our world, no matter what's going on in our own lives, no matter what trials we face, what battles we're going through, that helmet's not going to save you from that battle. Mm-hmm. It's going to see you through that battle. Mm-hmm. And that helmet is the hope of your salvation. That should always be the driving force. Always be the driving force. And always be your roots every single day. That no matter what's going on in your life, and we hear regularly on Feedback Friday, just incredible trials in our own audience. My heart breaks for people, whether it's from the jab mandate, whether it's from broken families, my heart breaks for them. But you know what I hear a lot in those emails? The helmet of the hope of salvation. That even so, things in this temporal world are this way. I know I know where my true fate lies. And that's with him because of what he did for me. That's the impetus. That is the motive. That is the grounding as well for making it through the trials and the battles of life.
I want to, that's a good word too. I want to go to this part of Jeremiah and I's book because it ties back into my book that started all of this, A Nefarious Plot. We write, therefore, St. Paul called us to be strengthened by the Lord and by his vast strength. Our own strength is insufficient. This call to embrace the strength God gives echoes his words to Joshua, be strong and very courageous. We too must embrace that same trust in God's strength if we hope to live the Christian life victoriously. But we're not in a battle to gain victory. Listen to this. We're not in a battle to gain victory. We're strengthened in the Lord and we engage in spiritual warfare from a position of victory. The victory over Satan was won on the cross, which goes back to the line from the film that Todd cited. The victory over Satan was won at the cross. Still, though, Christ has defeated our enemy. Defeated enemies don't always give up easily. When an enemy has nothing more to lose, he can attack with greater intensity. That harkens back to the book, A Nefarious Plot. And when I wrote the original book, my desire, I've talked many times about emulating as an homage, C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters. I've another book that's another homage to Lewis's great work. Randy Alcorn wrote a book about 20 years ago called Lord Falgrin, Lord Falgrin's Letters, which was his homage to Screwtape and borrows the heavily from the same structure that Lewis went with. So both of those books helped inspire me here. There's another writing too, and that's Paradise Lost by Milton. And one of the things that Milton tried to do is provide some context to the biblical narrative, things that may or may not be specifically in the Bible, but could very well, provided they're not sacrilegious, help us to understand the overall narrative of the scriptures without not necessarily being inspired themselves. I tried to borrow from that too. And I wanted to use the scriptures to inspire me to answer some questions that I think a lot of people have. Questions like, if the devil knows scripture and knows that he loses, then why does he keep doing this? What sense would that make? I mean, for most of us, particularly guys, the idea of fighting a battle that you know going in or are convinced already of the fact you won't win seems like a vain exercise. I mean, especially for men, we live in a fight or flight dynamic. We will fight if we think we can win. We'll run if we think we can't. And so it's hard for us to compute the enemy, knowing scripture even better than we do, knows he loses and just keeps going. Well, they've redefined what winning looks like. I don't believe hell truly thinks it is going to conquer heaven. It tried that once. Satan was cast out, and a third of the angels with him. What I think this is an attempt is what is written here. When an enemy has nothing more to lose, he can attack with greater intensity. This is about vengeance. This is, and I've cited this many times, I think the most biblical presentation of the devil that's ever been done in a film is Heath Ledger's Joker, which is why I used it to help inspire some of the caricature for Nefarious I created. He says, I'm an agent of chaos. Do I look like a guy with a plan? What have I been saying a lot recently? What's scarier than a cabal, a small hidden cabal of insider elites secretly running the country, the world, despite what you're trying to do in your own country? Scarier than that? Nobody's in charge. Chaos. That's scarier than that. The enemy is an agent of chaos. This is to cause carnage. The Joker has no plan at the end of the Dark Knight. He has a goal. That's not the same as a plan. His goal, by any means necessary, is to convince Batman, in this case almost like a Christological stand-in, if you will, that he is sacrificing himself for nothing. They're not worth it. It's pointless. Look, we've got two boats here. On one boat, the good people. On another boat, the bad people. Now, right away, there's a fallacy there. There's only bad people. No one's good. No one's good but God. There's only bad people. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We're already in a fallacy here, but the enemy operates. Fallacies are part of his native tongue. But the good people are on one ferry, the bad people are on the other ferry, and it's a test of ethics. Make the decision. Which group do you feel entitled that you get to mass murder? And then, hey, I hand them each the trigger. I step back. I wash my hands of the matter. I wait for them to blow each other up. And then I go to Batman and say, see, I told you. Why are you trying to help these people? As an accuser. That is an absolute satanic construct. That is absolutely what the enemy does with us every day. Tempts us into that which makes us fall. We succumb. And then he goes to our Lord and says, you did this for nothing. Why do you do this? These people aren't worth it. These meat bags are a waste of your time. That's what happened at the garden. The serpent comes, tests Eve and then Adam. And the way I depicted that in Nefarious, in the book, A Nefarious Plot, is from hell's perspective, he's a whistleblower. He's the hero. He's a freedom fighter. He's on the side of light, showing God that he made a mistake. Should have never made humans. But then God sent them a redeemer, the son of the woman who would crush the serpent's head with his heel. Nefarious says the cross was our greatest mistake. We thought we had won. But as we write here in the book, they lost forever. So there's nothing left to do now other than carnage, other than chaos. There isn't a plan. There's just a goal. And the goal is to destroy as many of our families as possible. The goal is to destroy as many truths as possible, as much beauty as possible, as much good as possible. Sure, as Nefarious points out, maybe they have some residual hope that our Heavenly Father will finally come to his senses and say, you know what? I should have listened to you, my firstborn, all along. These young kids today, they'll be the death of us and smite us off the earth. But more than likely, they know that's not going to happen. And so the goal until the end, pain. To cause as much pain. But not necessarily to cause it to us, but to use the pain they cause us to hurt him. Because he loves us. That's the plan, that there isn't one. There's just a goal. Destruction for the sake of destruction. Chaos for the sake of chaos. And that's what we mean when we say when an enemy has nothing more to lose, he can even attack with greater intensity. If the enemy believed that the kingdoms of this world, that to some extent are permitted within his dominion were to be eternally so, there would not be nearly as much destruction under his wake. He'd want to make sure there's something worthy of ruling. But he knows that's not the case. He knows this world and everything in it will all pass away. So meter's running. The clock is ticking. There's body bags to accrue, carnage to create, chaos to ensue, and there's only so much time. And that is why he is prowling around like a roaring lion, looking for whom he may devour. Gentlemen, thoughts on that?
Well, so he knows the truth, but it's not enough. This, again, going back to, this is very much an issue of the Holy Spirit. He knew the truth. People, Steve's brought up before, you know, that the devil knows more Bible verses than your average Christian. Knows the truth. But if you do not have the Spirit, you not only will you just ignore it, you'll actually come to resent it. You'll actually come to hate it. Knowing the truth is that this is one of the, I mentioned this last week, this is one of the, this was the fatal flaw of the Greeks at the height of their powers. Plato, Socrates, bringing truth, searching for it, earnestly trying to find it. But Plato and Socrates' fatal belief is that if you knew the truth, you couldn't but not do it. Oh, well, 400 years ago, the Lord came along because that's not true. And he gave us the Spirit because it's not simply a matter of faith, knowing the truth, but what after that? In the three holy virtues, the cardinal virtues, faith, hope, and love. Hope is what faith aspires to. Love, act. Charity, another word for love. Now think of your average Christian. When they think of that difference between victory already had, as Steve laid out, or a loss to anticipate, do they act more like God or do they act more like the devil? Because the things that they count as loss, well, not unimportant. As a man, you provide for, defend, things like that. But losing your job, being called a bad name, are any of these associated with not getting into heaven? No. In fact, quite the opposite. Yet we keep thinking of what we resent, the loss, instead of being honored to be part of the tribe of the victory already gained. And again, that's a Holy Spirit thing. We may claim to know the truth. We may be able to check all the boxes of the creed. But again, going back to what Steve talked about in a totally different context about what happened at a Kansas City Chiefs game, does it cause you to act? Or does it cause you to slink? And the whole ball game is figuring out which.
God is holy, the devil is a liar. And I think you look across any moment of any of your existence, any news story that breaks, anything that happens in our life is an affirmation of one or both of those truths. The outcome of sin, like you just talked about, Todd, the shooting there, the devil's a liar. The birth of a new baby, like my sister-in-law had at 3:30 this morning.
Oh.
God is holy, and out of that holiness is goodness. Everywhere you look is an affirmation of one of those two truths about the cosmos. God is holy, the devil is a liar. So what do we do? What then do we do as believers with that as our backdrop? It is going and making this full circle. It's putting on the full armor of God. Because of the truth that the devil is a liar, there's going to be trials in your life. There are going to be battles in your life every single day. But God is holy, and out of that holiness is his goodness. And he has equipped you with the tools of the trade necessary to go through, not from, but through those battles and through those trials.
Amen. At the end of this chapter, we lay out some very practical ways you can live this out. A prayer life, having a life of prayer. Just a willingness to stand. Again, Alfred says to Bruce Wayne, when Bruce Wayne has to confront the fact that there are some forces in this world that cannot be reasoned with. They just want to watch the world burn. And he asked Alfred, what would you have me do? Endure, was his answer. That's the same thing here. Finish the race. When I do appearances and people ask me to sign things for them personally, I'll often include finish the race. Doesn't matter what place you're in. It matters that you finish the race. Finish the race. So be willing to stand. Be willing to stand together. The triple braided cord is tougher to break. Where two or more are gathered in my name. You guys, if you're a believer, you've heard these verses before. Even if you're not one, you've probably heard some of these Bible verses before. But several of you over the last few years have asked me, I want to take a stand in my company. I want to take a stand in my school district. What do you suggest I do? First thing I always suggest to you, find other people in your company who agree with you. Find other people other parents in the district who agree with you. Gather together. Yeah. Sometimes you can be one Elijah on a chariot of fire. Sometimes you can do that. But we're human beings. And so unless you have that level of anointing of the Holy Spirit, hard to do that. Elijah had it, by the way. It was hard for him. He battled fits of depression. So stand together. Have each other's backs. The harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. So get people around you that agree with you. Stand together. And then, repeat step 1. But now you're praying together. So you can pray as an individual. You can stand as an individual. And then you can stand together with people who share your convictions. And you can pray together. Those are 4 very applicable steps. There's more. Whole books have been written on this topic. But those are 4 basic applicable steps that we could all do to at least get us started. Excellent conversation, gentlemen. When we come back, it'll be time for 3 non-political questions. Stay tuned. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. I am here in Missouri. Todd and Aaron are back there in Des Moines. Don't forget about our friends over at Patriot Mobile. They have been on the cutting edge of the parallel economy. And unfortunately, we don't have a well-developed parallel economy yet. Fortunately, one of the places where we do is with a product we all use and need in this day and age. That's a mobile phone. And Patriot Mobile can provide that for you with their 100% U.S.-based customer service team. That means you can understand them when they talk. That helps. But they also are great. Used them many times myself. I've heard from so many of you that have had great experiences with their customer service team as well. When you make the switch to Patriot Mobile, they'll get you hooked up with any of the major networks you want. You can switch anytime you need to for any reason, free of charge. If you're a veteran or first responder, you want to make the switch today, let them know when you call in. They have extra ways of saying thank you for your service. For the rest of us, you get a free activation with the offer code STEVE when you go to patriotmobile.com/Steve. Again, use my name, Steve, to get a free activation. patriotmobile.com/Steve. If you want to keep your phone, upgrade your phone, change numbers, keep the same number, they'll customize it for you and your family. patriotmobile.com/Steve. And with that, it is time for 3 non-political questions.
We all have questions.
Who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? Who am I? A search and a question of identity. Why am I here? A question of meaning and purpose. Where am I going? Question of destiny.
Some better than others.
What sort of morality or proto-morality would you expect to find in a chimpanzee troop?
Injecting some levity into the demise of Western civilization. It's 3 questions on the Steve Deace Show.
And look who is in a seat where she does not belong. At least not yet. I keep telling you, the day is coming. You will sit in that seat there, Princess. But that day, it's not quite here. But you know what? Not just how great you are, but you're bringing me a granddaughter in a couple of weeks, so I will allow it. How you doing, sweetheart?
Good. Doing good. Steven and I found ourselves kind of bored last night, so we started screening kid shows for autumn. And I find myself becoming more and more like you every single day.
So essentially, Autumn is not watching anything that was made before 2010. Is that basically what you're telling us?
Yeah. One of the scenes, these two parents started contradicting each other in front of their kids, and Steven and I are like, no, we are not doing this. Like, they have to be on the same front. We're turning things off, getting upset. But so that was, and then I just kind of sat back. I feel like every 20-year-old has that moment where they realize they're becoming their parent.
So is this like the Progressive insurance commercials where they become like their parents and once they buy their first house? Have you seen those ads? Yeah. That ad campaign is tremendous. It's hilarious.
I did feel like that.
I laugh out loud. Yeah.
I did feel like that. Or if the dad was an idiot. I remember when you would turn our shows off when we were kids and we would be so mad. But I was like, that's so dumb. That's the leader of their home. We're not going to have this be her show. And it was just a moment.
Now you're doing it.
Now
you're doing it. Yeah, what was the one Disney show, the one gal who is in Lemonade Mouth that I thought had the great singing voice?
Good Luck Charlie.
Yes. And we watched the first episode together and the dad was an idiot. What did I say? Never again. Nope.
I do remember that. And we found ourselves watching shows and doing that as well and everything. So, or just turning them off if they were annoying. And we were like, we don't want her to watch this at all.
See, Todd and Aaron, this is what you guys have soon to look forward to. And Todd, you sooner than Aaron. When the time comes that your kids come back to you and they're like, man, you were right. That it takes a while, but they eventually do come back to you and say things like that. You just witnessed it right here on the air, live.
Anna, do you have any strong thoughts about plastic fake grass in Easter baskets?
Do I have strong thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I don't have any strong thoughts.
Wow.
Yet.
Anna, how many Easter baskets did you get as a little girl with that plastic fake grass?
I don't remember getting any Easter baskets with that.
Yeah, how about with peeps in them?
I don't remember getting any with peeps in them either.
See? You know why? Because I'm a good dad. That's why.
I feel like I missed something, so I'm happy I answered correctly on that.
You did, and it was hopelessly neurotic, and it's probably for the best.
Yes, yeah. Tune into yesterday's show, and you'll know what they're talking about. All right, you've got 3 non-political questions for us, sweetie. Go ahead.
So my first question is more of a personal question because I'm curious to see what you guys think. Is Steven and I, mostly Steven, enjoys watching a lot of the conservative content where they debate like a hardcore liberal where they go back and forth, or the Jubilee content where they'll do a prompt and then have them come up for it if they agree on it. Like yesterday he was wanting me to watch one where it was hardcore men who are pro-choice against like pro-life women, and I can't ever finish the videos. Like I watch them and I'm like, this is accomplishing nothing. We're just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and I feel like they're a complete waste of time, and then I end up getting upset. So I'm curious to see and then I tell them to turn it off because I can't watch it anymore. So I'm curious to get your guys' opinion on those kinds of videos, if you think that those kinds of videos are helpful at all, because I watch them and I think that they're pointless because nobody's changing either side at all. Do you know what I'm trying to ask? Like, I'm curious about that. If you guys think that they're helpful, and if I'm wrong, thinking that they're a waste of time to watch.
All right, I'm going to take this one last. All right, I want to hear what everybody else thinks first.
So, are you talking about like the Whatever podcast where Michael Knowles goes and tells whores to come to Jesus?
Stuff like that too. Yeah, I'm just like,
well, now I suddenly want to watch this the way you described it, Aaron. Now I'm interested. Yes, but anyway, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, I think in that circumstance they can be valuable because those women have never even been challenged on any level. Just to plant a seed, I think they can be valuable. But as to the degree which they're like changing hearts and minds, no, that's not really the point of those. I think it's just to plant seeds for those people. You can maybe debate whether that should be entertainment for the rest of us. It could be instruction for the rest of us on how to debate effectively. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the degree to which we're changing hearts and minds here with debates. I mean, was there any great revival? Who was it? It was, oh man, I can't remember the name of the atheist, but I know William Lane Craig, who's one of the premier Christian philosophers, apologists of the age. He debated a famous, I think it was a European atheist. Did we have a great revival after that debate? It was televised. No, we didn't, but at least I have to think some seeds were planted.
Well, broadly speaking, I would say that they are useful. I mean, this is ultimately goes all the way back to the Greeks again. Socratic dialogue, no idea worth having is worth having if you aren't willing to test it in the arena of ideas. And also the simple fact that nobody comes, to terms with an immediate fact that somebody won and somebody lost, right there on stage. That, well, think about any argument you've had, your sibling, your parents out at a bar. Like, how often do you go back and forth and somebody just repents and says, yes, you got me? I mean, that's not how it works. It is how it usually works, Aaron, with seeds planted. And I think, interestingly enough, it might work as much or more, have the potential to, in that weird Michael Knowles and the Whores version of things.
That's the name of a band right there. Michael Knowles and the Whores.
It is.
Yes. Playing the hits. Yes.
But then on Crossfire or something like that no matter with what intent they started, that kind of stuff on cable news is so formulaic and so soundbite-ish, and you have minutes to speak. But if they're doing what you're talking about, and I'm not exactly familiar with it, but if they're having an hour-long discussion, yeah, I mean, maybe that's a sign of your level of maturity already in terms of some of these arguments. But a lot of people, need to be thrown into these fires. If they want to be serious about being part of the solution down the road, they need to know how to do this. They need to know how rhetoric works. And ultimately, this isn't a debate contest. This is somebody said recently on social media that conservatives make that mistake all the time, whereas the left just, goes for power. That does need to be understood, but that doesn't mean turn your brain off and not know how to learn this and do this well. Your dad is successful at this because he realizes how important it is.
Very good answers. I will add the following. To what they said. Amen to everything both of them said. I'll add this. I think from your perspective, you grew up around this. And as much as, I tried to let you guys have a normal childhood, you were always, when you were little, I used to call you my little Augustine. You followed me around. You wanted to come to speaking engagements. You asked me questions. And so you've worked in theater. You've been in an environment already where people have different worldviews, and you've had to learn to navigate that. And so what you're looking at from your perspective is there's not going to be a positive resolution here. Your husband is a soldier, all right? He is signed up and wired for combat. So what he's looking for is proof of concept, I believe. What he wants to see is when the bullets start flying, metaphorically speaking, all right? Do the things that I and the people that I agree with and the values that I agree with, can they hold up in the fight? Not just when we're around a bunch of people that agree with us, but can they hold up in the fight? You kind of already experienced that. And I think for him, this is his kind of tour of duty where that's concerned. And it's also kind of the way that he's wired. So I agree with you, sweetie. If you're going in there thinking at the end, we're going to smoke peace pipe and folks are going to be like, wow, you're right. I need to repent. Probably not in most cases. You're right. But if you're going in there wondering, hey, man, can we take heavy fire and come out on the other side, which is, I guess, what he's looking at. Yeah, then I think there can be something productive found there for sure.
Gotcha. Well, no, I was just curious because I can't watch those videos. He wants me to watch them all the time with him because it gets him fired up. It gets me fired up, and I just get in a bad mood. It gets me in my Steve Deace mood. I'm just slamming dishes around and stuff like that. So no, I was just curious. Okay, so my second question for you guys. So, in honor of Aaron and I's birthday week, what is all of your guys' favorite birthday memories?
I got one.
Go ahead. I've got one too. Go ahead, Todd.
It's my very first date with my wife. It just happened to be on my birthday, and she didn't even know it because she was living here in Iowa and I was living in Wisconsin, and we had met 3 weeks earlier and talking on the phone, and finally said, we had too good of a time together. I'm coming. And she, was doubting whether I was real or not. So on my birthday, I came there, and the rest is history. So she's the best birthday present ever.
Aw.
We probably should have had Aaron or Todd go last.
That was really sweet.
Now,
deal with that, suckers.
Yeah. It's funny. I saw a story last week where a mom bought her virginal son a hooker for his birthday.
Aw.
And exactly, yes. And
not quite the same story.
No, not
it's
quite.
A little different.
It's more The World According to Garp. If you ever seen that movie back in the day. But, it reminded me of my favorite birthday that I had as a kid. Is your grandmother one year got me a breakaway before we had like goal setters, a breakaway basketball hoop that he had your grandpa Dave install low enough, like 9.5 feet back when we could jump back in the day, so that we could actually dunk on it. And I thought, she didn't buy me a hooker, but I thought that basketball hoop, man, was pretty freaking dope. I mean, we had so many good times on that thing. That was a pretty cool birthday. But my all-time favorite is the year that you guys pulled off the surprise birthday party for my 39th birthday, and I really had no idea what was going to go down. And that was a really cool event. That's probably my favorite one. Aaron?
So this is going to be, I'm going to out myself in the extreme as a homeschooled, sheltered kid. But the one that jumps off the page to me, actually, is my 10th birthday. And I had all my friends over to the house, like even ones that I didn't have over regularly. We had like a bunch of boys over. And we played the biggest game of Army that you've ever seen across the entire property, down at the pond, out in the windbreak, everywhere. A bunch of 10-year-olds.
Casualty count was high.
Yes, it was very high. So that's always my favorite.
Nice.
And then my last question for you guys is, if you could have any celebrity on the show, who would you choose and why?
Donald Trump, because I want to see if it's possible to reason with him on Operation Warp Speed from someone who actually knows something about it, as opposed to most media people who kind of don't. That would be my answer, given what's at stake on multiple levels with such a conversation. That would be my answer.
I just saw him on social media recently, and I think his testimony it appears pretty powerful. Mark Wahlberg talking about making a father stew, how reaching out to those who need the Lord looks, is kind of contextual at times. Why he made Father Stew the way he did, and some people had issue it. Well, some people have probably never spent time in prison in the hood like he has, and he knows, if I'm going to reach that person's heart, this is how they need to hear it. I think he's a very interesting individual.
I would do Chris Pratt. I think he would be a fun person to interview and ask about. He's been somewhat outspoken about his faith, and he just seems like a fun guy to be around. So that's the guy I would choose.
I like all this.
Anna, you have one?
Probably Taylor Swift. It's probably who I'd invite on the Steve Deace Show.
No.
That's not a good answer.
No.
What would we talk about with her?
I think just everything. Maybe just start with her history. Maybe about why she endorsed Biden, her and Trav.
Who's more shallow, Taylor Swift or Travis Kelce? Discuss.
It's got to be Travis Kelce. I think that's pretty easy.
But she's the one dating him, so
who's the fool?
Yeah. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I'm sorry.
Last chopper out of Nam. That's what this is.
I'm sorry I even asked that question.
You had to have seen that coming.
Now, based on your own principle, Anna, about the doofus father, you can't let your kid just wander around listening to Taylor Swift. You realize that based on your own principle.
I have been listening to Taylor Swift while Autumn's been in the womb, so that when she comes out, she'll want to listen to her.
But once she becomes verbal.
I want to thank Anna for the mess that she left me in my inbox, I'm sure, after this show is over, for sure. Thank you, sweetie.
Thank you.
All right. Be well. We're going to stick around and do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. We're going to get into that video clip from the Oklahoma legislature that Aaron had in his montage. We'll discuss that more. For the rest of you, we will see you tomorrow on Friday for the Deace Group. Until then, Romans 8:28.